Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dialogue Dome. My name is Brendan. This is Max. And today we're going to
Hello.
talk about something very futuristic, but very possible, the
Hmm.
potential of colonizing the solar system.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I just thought this was a cool idea to talk about. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that this is not out of the realms of human civilization. I think that
Yeah.
space colonization is definitely possible.
Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
I'd like
Um.
to start off by like our general thoughts on it, I guess. Let's just start
Okay.
there and then we can dive into specific things. But I just want to
Right.
let's talk first, what are your general thoughts, Max, about space colonization? Humans getting there, what happens? What's your vision of that look
Yeah.
like?
So okay, I am definitely of the mindset, maybe even in the minority, well, maybe the majority. In a spot where like colonizing other planets is a really fucking cool idea. Full send, full stop, let's do it. I myself am less interested colonizing other planets.
Okay.
Uh Space is a fucking dangerous place. Have you seen what's out there? Have you seen what's going on?
I mean, I've watched the movie Gravity.
Exactly. This is fucking terrifying.
Oh man.
But like space is a pretty cool concept. And I think if it was more predictable, which I'm sure there's a bunch of scientists out there, it's like, yeah, we can probably find and predict a bunch of stuff that happens out in space to make this even possible in the first place. Like, I'm absolutely down for it. Um, it's one of those situations like I mean you hear all the time Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars or some other
Mhm.
random what have you going on there, and I think it could very well be possible to do something along those lines. We have enough technology even now that we could probably figure something out.
Mhm.
uh and I understand why we probably haven't yet,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It's this weird toss up for me where yes, let's fucking go. Full send. Let's do it. But man, does that seem like a really dangerous thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the challenges of that in a second, but
Sure.
um, just general thoughts. So you're for it, but you
Yeah.
don't see it as happening soon, right?
Probably not
Mm-hmm.
soon. Like again, I think we do have the technology to even send a basic something to Mars and probably survive for a very good long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if like full colonization of Mars is going to happen soon.
Yeah. I mean, so my general thoughts on this is, um, I think that colonizing the solar system, and even maybe even further than that, like going
Mhm.
out beyond our solar system,
Mhm.
um, I think that if humanity survives long enough, I think that is the future. That is going
Yeah.
to happen. I don't think it's a
Oh, it
question.
has to be.
I don't think it's a question of if. I think it's a question of when.
Yeah.
And I think that what excites me the most about it is that yes, space is, as you were mentioning, very dangerous, but
Mhm.
the potential for space exploration is just enormous. I mean, it really
Mhm.
is. I mean, there's just so much happening in the depth of NASA, the depth of other countries trying to
Mhm.
get to space. Again, you have people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos investing in space colonization and stuff like that. And now
Right.
we're even now at a point where even like the president of the United States, the last couple of decades has been talking about that being a possibility. I
Mhm.
mean, I think we're more realistically closer to that happening now than we ever have been. And I think that the
Mhm.
reason why is because, like you said, Max, the technology now is definitely there. I mean,
Right.
we have so much potential as a species for technology these days. I mean, it's getting to a point now where, even people who are what we would call quote unquote tech savvy cannot
Sure.
keep up with the current technology that's changing. I mean, it is
Mhm.
changing faster than the blink of an eye in some places.
For sure.
And I think, just even if you just look at the last 5 years of technology, how far we've come,
Mhm.
when it comes to particularly certain areas of the technology industry. If you see the last 5 years and how much the technology industry has grown, imagine what that will be like in 25, 30 years.
Mm.
I mean, we're going to be looking at massive leaps in human evolution, uh, whether it be natural or forced. I think it'll be a forced leap in evolution. Um,
Mhm.
but I definitely think that, for me personally, I am all for space colonization. I think that that is honestly the answer. I don't think that that is going to be easy. I think that
Oh,
there's a lot of things we
definitely
can talk
not.
about the challenges in a second, like I said. But
Mhm.
I think that just looking at space colonization, if you're somebody that says space colonization is not the future, I'd be more interested in knowing why. Because
Right.
I think personally that space colonization, if humanity survives long enough, is not an if, it's a when, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that it's even more than that. Like it is an absolute certainty, mostly because if you just do the math, resources on this planet are going to be used up
Mhm.
at some point. Like we can
It's not anytime
try
soon, but
exactly,
it's gonna
but
happen. Yeah.
exactly. We're going to run out of specific resources and we're going to have to go to other planets just to even find these same resources and maybe even new resources that we never even hoped of or dreamed of or whatever. Like it's I think I agree with you that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When do we need to go and actually start any sort of colonization process? Um What I think is more interesting is how science of this particular nature just kind of turned into like pop science
Mhm.
where like, oh, Elon Musk is going to fucking colonize Mars. Ah, emoji, 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 emoji. Fucking like 100% or fucking something. I don't know. Just like
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's cool.
Mhm.
And obviously we're trying to hit a younger demographic to be interested in these sorts of things. But it's so fascinating how that has really played into who's interested in colonization, I think.
Yeah,
And why,
everyone has their opinions of Elon Musk. Well, that's for certain. And,
for sure.
when he bought X, Twitter, whatever the fuck it's called, um
Mhm.
his
I'm just call it Twitter.
yeah,
It's fucking Twitter to me.
there
I'm
yeah, I think that when he bought Twitter,
yeah.
he started showing a side of him that a lot of people don't like about Elon Musk. His
Yeah.
ego is very clearly huge.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I mean, the man is the man is a very successful man. I mean, he has,
Yeah, for
regardless of
sure.
what your opinion is on him,
Mhm.
he bought Tesla and
Yep.
milked Tesla, and now he's gotten tons of money off of Tesla, and now
Right.
he's opened up a SpaceX program, which
Mhm.
I I don't know how people feel about him being in charge of space and going to space, or the idea
Mhm.
of that, but I think it's nothing but a good thing that he's investing in space technology, because I think that we need to start progressing that forward. I mean, it's weird. We landed on the moon. I'm talking about the United States. We
Mhm.
landed on the
Yeah.
moon.
Mhm.
Buzz Aldrin. We all know who he is. He was the first
Yep.
person to step on the moon. Became famous instantly
Mhm.
overnight for doing that.
Neil Armstrong, all of
Neil
them. Yep.
Armstrong, all those people.
Yep.
And then after that, didn't touch the moon for a
Yeah.
good 25 years.
hmm
Maybe even more, because we're still not really touching it much.
I don't. I
Why?
don't think we've really. Yeah.
My question is why? And I know that, like, it's great that we were able to go to space. We
hmm
landed on a different planet other than ours for the first time ever. Whether,
hmm
yes, it is the moon, it's our closest neighbor, but still, it's not on this planet. It's the first time we
Right.
ever got there. And by the way, can I just say we got there on technology that was powered with enough power that literally my coffee maker could run on it now. That's how much power it was. It wasn't that
Yep.
much.
Yep.
So we were able to do that. And then we started doing things like space stations, which
Yeah.
I agree with. I think space stations are great. In fact, I think that the International Space Station was a great starting point. I think that we
hmm
should even go further than that and build a giant one that we
Yes,
can
I
see
agree.
from the Earth with the naked eye. I mean, I think that would be
Yeah.
kind of cool. But we haven't really done a lot of stuff about space lately, and Elon Musk is really the first person to start talking about that again. And I think
hmm
that that's great because, you know, again, it's not really an if, it's a when. Because at this
hmm
point, I think that humans, whether we destroy this planet or not, will live. I
Oh
think that
yeah.
we will be arrogant. We are a very arrogant species. We find a way to survive somehow.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think that we are going to progress far enough to be able to leave this planet behind.
hmm
And whether it be whether it could be because we destroyed it or the sun does, one of the reasons. I mean, eventually this planet will be destroyed. The question is
Oh yeah.
whether it will be us or the sun. Um,
hmm
but the point is that, I think that there's just such a romantic sense of space. Like, so many people romanticize space. I mean, there's
hmm
so many books about it, TV shows,
Yeah.
movies, and, like, yes, a lot of those are very far-fetched, but
Sure.
a majority of these shows and movies and books and all of that, they're within a scope of some reality. I mean, there is a
Right.
very big possibility that a lot of the stuff that we see in these
hmm
kinds of books is based on science. We could do what these books are describing a lot of the time.
hmm
Like, one of the most um famous books out there is Foundation. It's a book.
Hmm.
It was one of the first ever popular science fiction books that talked about the human race outside of Earth on a different planet, or just a bunch of different planets, and it's set like billions of years in the future, and it
hmm
talks about a lot about how it's normalizes humans having, expanded to a point where they've basically conquered the entire Milky Way galaxy. And then there's references to it being so advanced that people don't even remember what Earth was,
Hmm.
because it was so far in the past, and human has evolutionized to a point now. I mean, the main planet on the Foundation is a planet named Trantor, which is a man-made planet. It is a
Hmm.
completely artificial planet that they built their own, literally mega planet with like tons of cities and stuff that orbits around a sun. They artificially
Sure.
man-made it. And I mean, I think someday that could happen if we got
hmm
advanced enough. That's not out of the scope of reality. It's nowhere near it's not going to happen in our lifetime, guys. I,
Sure.
I
Sure.
hate to
Sure. Sure.
disappoint people, but
That,
um it's just fascinating to read about this stuff, because
it is.
it's science fiction, but it might
Hmm
not be fiction someday. That's the thing.
hmm
You know? It's kind of cool.
It is very cool. And I wholeheartedly agree. But now to play devil's advocate, because that's the kind of
Sure.
guy
Yeah,
that
let's
I
do it.
am.
Let's do it.
Um, Going back to your media and whatnot, I start picturing stuff like Alien and Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers and all
So
of this
all
other
the
stuff.
things where you see space travel gone wrong. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. See, because like Alien, straight up, is they
Which,
fucking
by the
go
way,
out.
let's just start by saying the
Yeah.
Alien franchise is a fascinating concept about the origin of humans.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so clever. They talk
Yeah.
about, for those of you who have not seen it, I'm sorry, there's going to be spoilers, but they talk in particularly Prometheus about the origin of human beings not being from Earth and having been seeded onto this planet. And it's a very interesting idea, but anyway, keep going.
It is an interesting idea. Well, I'm talking about OG Alien.
Okay.
Fucking the first movie, Sigourney Weaver.
The one that made Sigourney Weaver famous.
Alien.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic movie. I absolutely love the director and the designs, the actors, fucking John Hurt. Oh, so good. But in that particular movie, and again, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but like, what, it came out in the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
Read a book. Read a book about a movie and then watch the movie. Come on. But like, so John Hurt and crew go and they find this desolated, broken down ship on a random alien planet, and fucking John Hurt gets fucking face huggered onto his face and then implanted with all of the eggs and whatnot, which, like, symbolism aside, is absolutely fucking terrifying. Straight up number one. And he's in medbay for like days, and then he comes out, he's finally like better, but then he comes out and then fucking chest burster, just all over the fucking place. And that then chest burster just grows up into the fucking xenomorph, and
In 2 days.
in like, yeah,
Oh,
that's absolutely awful. And what sucks the absolute most is that is not in the realm of impossibility.
Oh yeah, that could totally be something that could happen someday. Oh yeah.
Like, and that, again, that's just math. That's just straight up math.
Yeah.
There are billions of stars out there. Each one of those stars probably has a solar system that is developing animals and microbes and bacteria and all of this. Now, I'm not saying that Alien is probably the one that's going to happen, but War of the Worlds could be.
I mean, I'll just even digress for a second here. I mean, sure. I'm not kidding you. The closest planet in the habitable zone of its star to us is it's called Centauri B, Proxima Centauri B. It's 4 light years away. It would take us, if we were traveling at the speed of light, it would take us 4 years to get there. That's not very far.
No, that isn't very far.
And it's just to think that a species like the xenomorph could live on a planet that close. I mean, that's just kind of
exactly.
To you, it's horrifying. To me, that's fucking awesome. But that's
it's
just me.
Awesome, but that's like, again, it's awesome, but that's horrifying.
Oh yeah,
because we've grown up on this planet and we've figured out how to survive on our planet. And
even then, we still don't know all the species on the planet. There could be some that are huge that we just don't even know. Bigfoot.
Exactly. Fucking in the ocean. Yeah, we'll check out the cryptid episode when
that drops someday. We don't know when that will drop yet, but it's happening.
But like, fucking on this planet alone, we've gotten pretty good at surviving in nature, but it still happens. People win their Darwin Awards every fucking day just taking a hike out in the world.
Particularly on Madagascar.
Exactly.
Yeah, that I mean, we can talk for just about that alone in an episode. I mean, Madagascar has it's the one island on the planet that has the most species in that we know of in the planet in one place. I mean, it's crazy how just Madagascar has just some species are just home to Madagascar. But anyway.
So my whole thing is like, now we've taken our planet, which we're still fighting diseases and animals and all of this, and we're still like trying to fight to survive, and now we just put that in space.
Hmm. And we
Brutal.
we multiply the possibility of species by about 1 billion,
Exactly.
and the
Absolutely
possibility
brutal.
of dangerous species by probably 2 billion.
Exactly.
Um,
If not more, because again, billions of stars, each of them with planets, all of them growing things that are just designed to kill you.
yeah, and this
Mm.
there is we're going to do an episode about aliens in general, so I'm not really
Sure.
don't wanting to focus too much on that
Sure,
today.
sure.
But you are correct in the scope of things, because this is you know on topic here.
Mm.
Colonizing the solar system, you have to think about particularly um, other species on other planets
Mhm.
potentially being there.
Right.
But I'm particularly talking mostly about, just colonizing our solar system. I think that
Sure.
that was a cool idea.
I think
Um,
that one will definitely be the safer option for sure.
yeah, and I think that realistically that will happen, because
Mhm.
that's the closest planets that we have access to. I mean, anything else
Right.
requires a I guess we'll start with the challenges now. I mean, anything
Mhm.
outside of our solar system would require an immense amount of power, fuel, and time. I think
Mhm.
the biggest obstacle here is time.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even if you get a ship to be able to travel at the fastest possible distance per second, which is in this case light speed, the closest planet that I was just talking about would take 4 years to get to. I mean, that is just there's so
Yeah.
much space in space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the worst part is there's so much that can go wrong in those 4 years. If you're blasting an
Mhm.
engine full speed at 4 years, just that alone, I
Mhm.
mean, there's no repair station anywhere.
Yeah.
They're going to have to
Can't just stop and say, "Oh my goodness."
Oh my goodness, thank God we stopped next to this gas station. I mean, like, geez, we
Right?
can't.
Let me just
There isn't
refuel real quick.
anything out there.
Mhm.
Um, but let's talk realistically right now about
Sure.
what the biggest challenge is right
Mhm.
now in getting to space. Do you know what the biggest challenge is? Because there is an answer to this.
There is an answer to this. I'm not entirely sure offhand.
Hmm.
I tend to think that people are the biggest obstacle to a bunch of things.
I mean, that's true too. But I'm talking that if everyone agrees on, let's pretend that everybody agrees on a plan to get into space. You
Yeah.
build a machine to get into
Yeah.
space. What's the biggest obstacle?
Energy?
Close.
Yeah.
Getting off the planet cheaply.
Uh,
Hmm.
money.
It is money, but the problem is that in order for us to get off this planet, because of the gravitational force, we need both an excessive amount of energy
Mhm.
and an excessive amount of force
Mm.
just to get off the planet. And the result of that is incredibly expensive to build with the current
Hmm.
with the current technology we have. I mean, even with the amount of technology that we have developed over the years, how far we've come with it, we
Mhm.
still have no way to cheaply get off the planet without it being incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
um, and I think that, a lot of people ask, like, why haven't other civilizations, if they're smart and intelligent, come to us at this
Mhm.
point? I think it's because they probably have the same problem we do. It's so difficult to
Yeah.
get off of a planet. I mean,
Mhm.
you have to create these massive machines that ex- that expel an unbelievable amount of force and velocity just to get
Right.
off the planet, just to break orbit. I
Mhm.
mean, once you break orbit, you don't have to use too much energy to propel yourself forward. But
Mm-hmm.
because there's no gravity in space. But
Right, right,
um,
right.
it's crazy how much force is needed. That's the biggest challenge, is just getting off the planet.
Mm.
And there's been talks about this. I've read a lot of stuff about this. There is this one theory. Somebody said, well, why don't we just build the spaceship in orbit? That would solve the issue of getting off the planet. We would just build the space station in orbit, or a hangar in orbit that would build
Yeah.
the spaceship in space, and therefore it's
Hmm.
already in space. We don't have to launch it. That's
Yeah.
which, by the way, that's the Star Trek method.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure, because like it's true. Starship Enterprise, it doesn't need to go into atmosphere. It just needs to hang out on the side of the planet, and I think that's actually a pretty brilliant idea, up to the point of like, okay, cool. We have this idea of building the spaceship out in space. How do we get all of the material
That's the
up
challenge.
there, up
That's
there? Because
that's the challenge.
you've just traded one problem for the same exact problem, just
Mm-hmm.
in a different way.
Yeah. I think that it would be cool, and I'm not sure if anyone's thought of this. I think it would be cool if we built a gigantic elevator.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, if you build a gigantic elevator that
Mm-hmm.
is attached to the ground and connected to the station,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is possible, but like basically the whole idea of getting out of the atmosphere and re-entering the atmosphere kind
Mm-hmm.
of doesn't really exist anymore, because when you re-enter the atmosphere, if you re-enter the atmosphere slow enough,
Yeah.
you'll be able to kind of avoid the friction of the atmosphere that you see.
Right.
We see all this all the time in space films, where you have to put the heat shield on, and
Right.
you enter gravitation, you enter the earth so fast that you end up kind of causing so much friction that there's tons of fire
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. You
Yep.
eliminate that problem if you go slow enough. To an extent, you still have a little bit of it,
I
but
mean, sure.
the question then becomes, would that be sustainable enough? And two, could it be maintained?
Mm.
So like, again, you're right. You've traded one problem in with something that's actually, in my opinion, more difficult. If we build it here, at
Mm.
least we can get it done.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's why I
I'm
was
not. Yeah.
thinking, like, let's build a space station in space and farm other resources on moons and stuff, places
Right.
that don't have an atmosphere.
I wonder if it's a matter of distance. I have no idea if somebody came up with this thought, but the thought that I'm now having is, what if instead of trying to go from point A to point B in a straight line, we just did fucking
Circle?
that
Yeah,
up
circle.
up until we get to the point where we're finally in space.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because planes fucking go up and down all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have, well, as far as I know, they don't have a huge problem going up and down.
Well, they're in the
So
atmosphere already.
exactly. But if they just kept going up, like if we had a plane that could just keep going up.
Well, technically, modern spaceships are planes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, modern spaceships
Well,
are
shit. Then
are
somebody's already had this idea.
yeah, modern. So the big thing back in the day with like Apollo and stuff like that, the Apollo
Yeah.
days, they had a pod that was
Yeah.
cone shaped, and
Yeah.
basically what would happen was they would put the flat point
Yeah.
on direct, like pointing toward Earth, while the
Right.
space station comes down, or while the space pod comes into the atmosphere, and
Right.
then the fire would go around that bottom part and upward
Mhm.
past the cone. And the problem with that is that you get a lot more friction when the space, or when the pod is flat. You get a lot more friction and a lot more fire.
Mhm.
So the solution to that was to create something like the Challenger. We all know of the
Mhm.
Challenger. Unfortunately, it's in the bottom of the ocean now. But the
Mhm.
Challenger is one of the first ones, or I forget the famous other one. I think it was Discovery. I forget.
I have no
Um,
idea offhand.
I love how
Famous
I,
fictional
I love how
spaceships.
I type in famous spaceships and all the fictional ones.
Yeah. Yep, 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 yep. I think I was mostly thinking of like because it's true. Now that you mention it, I do remember some of the designs that some of these spaceships have. I think what I was thinking of was um how when we launch something up into space, it almost feels like we're just doing a straight line or even just like a curved
Mm-hmm.
line. I'm just saying we just extend the curve like a plane. We start on a runway, we build up speed, and then we take off, and then from that point we just keep fucking going until we hit space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm talking about the space shuttle program. That's where.
Hmm.
Um, Challenger is the most famous one because of the Kristen McAuliffe mission that went wrong and exploded
Yeah,
in orbit, and then yeah, all that stuff.
right.
Um, Funny enough, there is one called Enterprise. Um,
Nice.
Discovery is the most famous one because it has the most successful amount of missions to space and back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's essentially it's got wings. It's a white craft that's got wings and has a cone for a nose.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically they discovered that essentially if you point the nose and use that as your point of entry, then you
Mm-hmm.
create much less friction because the fire goes around the spacecraft as opposed to generating on the spacecraft. So
Right.
it's actually much safer to be in a space shuttle than it was to be in an Apollo 13 pod or something, or Apollo
Sure.
12 or 11 or whatever. I said Apollo 13 because it's the most famous movie, right? Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, so um, I don't know. It's just it raises the question like, how do you build a spacecraft and get it off the ground cheaply
Right.
without spending your entire economy's worth of money? Unfortunately, the biggest problem right now is money. It's
Mm-hmm.
currency. Currency is a two-handed sword, a double-edged sword.
Yep.
It really is.
We need to become a type 1 society. Fucking fucking now. We were so close. Do you know what pisses me off is do you know how close we were to actually being a type 1 society?
No, I don't.
We were so fucking close. And it pisses me off that we just reverted all of these political decisions and all of these money whatevers and all this what have you and we just couldn't get there. For anyone who doesn't know, a type 1 society is a society in which we are able to harness the power of the sun, much like plants do. That we're able to use our resources to harness the sun in such a way where that is our energy source. And we're still getting there. Like solar panels and solar energy exists, but it's still not there yet. And what pisses me off is how close we were before things kind of reverted back. And big coal and all these other fucking gasoline places were like, nah, we don't want to do that because then you're not buying from us. We want that sweet money.
Yep. Ronald Reagan.
Exactly. Because I mean, just imagine, just
It's
think
always
about it.
Reagan.
If you didn't have to pay for electricity because we had enough solar panels and good solar panels to where we could harness the energy of the sun and never run out of electricity. Just at all, ever. And you know how easy it is to do that.
I wouldn't call that easy.
Well, okay. The infrastructure. I was mostly talking about infrastructure. Do you know how easy it is to set up the infrastructure?
I mean, yes,
It's
but actually,
mind-numbingly easy.
actually
It's expensive.
building actually building the solar panels to work correctly is a different story. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
if you ever
I
talked about that.
guess.
But anyway, let's not open up politics here. Um,
I guess.
yeah. But anyway, so what interests me the most, I think,
Mhm.
about this episode in particular is we've now reached a point where now we've had Obama, Donald
Mhm.
Trump, and Joe Biden
Mhm.
all talking about colonizing some other place. You
Mhm.
know, Obama and Joe Biden have talked about colonizing Mars. Donald Trump talked
Sure.
about colonizing the moon by 2030. And
Sure.
regardless of what you think of those three individuals, I think they're
Mhm.
thinking in the right direction. Okay.
I think so.
I think that all three of them
On
had
this topic
on
specifically.
this topic. Yes,
On this
let's
very specific topic.
yes.
Okay? Very specific topic.
Yes, let's be as crystal clear as possible. It's this topic. um
This is the one where we can agree that they
well,
had something going on.
I feel like every political leader in general agrees that we need to get to
I
space.
think so.
I think that, what makes it super interesting to me is that we are now in the realm of possibility that we could potentially, if we had the money and the resources, today, we could colonize the moon and create an actual city on the moon. And, again, you have to ask, like, well, where does the oxygen come from? Well, what you could do? You could build a bunch of gigantic tanks, which would have the oxygen. And then eventually you'll get to a point where you can create an artificial environment that you can use to build plants. And then those plants can then fund your oxygen eventually. So eventually you can start with the current method of having an unsustainable resource start to create a sustainable resource. That's what we usually do as humans. We find something that's unsustainable, we use it, and then we use that to create something sustainable, right? That's how human civilization has become so famous or infamous, depending on the way you look at it.
Sure.
And then we can use the sun's energy. If we ever get to a point where solar panels are good enough, we can use the sun's energy to power the station. You have infinite power. I mean, we're at a point where we could theoretically and logically, with the technology that we have, colonize the solar system. We could colonize the moon. We could colonize Mars. We could colonize some of the moons of Saturn, of Jupiter, although Jupiter would be more difficult because the gravity is a little bit tough on that. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. We're definitely there. I mean, we're even talking about potentially finding a way to terraform planets. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. There's one I want to talk about this before we get any deeper into this. We are coming toward 40 minutes now into this. But I want to talk about a game franchise that I personally think does this unbelievably well. It's probably the most realistic representation of our future that I think any video game franchise has done, with the exception of a couple of things. And it's a franchise called Mass Effect. And I don't know if you have ever played it, Max. If you haven't played it,
I haven't played Mass Effect. I've heard about it. I know a lot of references, but I don't think I've never played Mass Effect.
Mass Effect has its things where it's very unrealistic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that it's perfect by any means when it comes to human civilization in the future. But what I think it does so tremendously well is it realistically represents what it would be like if humanity actually did find a way to get to space efficiently and build an entire colony of ships, build a bunch of bases on other planets. The only thing that changes it is that they find something called the Mass Effect Relay, and it's basically this giant teleporter that basically flings a spaceship beyond light speed throughout the Milky Way galaxy. It's the Mass Effect Relay. So it's Mass Effect is the name of the game for that reason. It's the Mass Effect Relay. And so the only thing that is actually realistically a possibility, if we ever end up finding something like that in space, we could try it. I don't know. But basically, it ends up happening that we fling ourselves into a system, and then what happens? What do you think happens? So this isn't actually depicted in the games. This is based on lore. So we find the Mass Effect relay. We build a ship. We build a ship that's capable of sustaining interstellar travel. We go into the Mass Effect relay. We fling ourselves toward whatever the Mass Effect relay flings us toward. We land somewhere. What do you think happens?
We fucking kill all the aliens.
Close. Very close. Okay. We encounter an alien species called the Turians, and we instantly go to war with them. But not because of us, because they start a war on us. That's the difference.
Oh, okay.
So I think that that's the most realistic possibility that we're going to see. Because let's be honest with you. If we encounter an alien species with a bunch of other ships, they're not going to be looking for peace. They're going to be looking for things. They're going to be wondering why the fuck we're out here.
They're probably going to be looking for the same stuff we are. They're going to want resources. They're going to need something. And it's true. That's kind of intimidating that the technologically superior species is going to probably want to take over and control the technologically inferior species. And as sad as it is to say, humans have been doing that for a while.
Yeah. And that's not to say that we won't win that war if we ever do. But I can guarantee you right now that the first spaceships, that are going to be used to explore outside of our solar system are not going to be armed.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to have laser cannons like in Star Wars. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Star Wars is the first thing I think of when I think of a giant space movie, or Star Trek.
Yeah.
Those are the two most famous franchises. Yeah. Both of them are wildly unrealistic. But at the same time, I think Star Trek does a better job of depicting what could realistically happen. But Mass Effect is very much based off of the Star Trek universe. It's not. It's not like. It's very different from the Star Trek universe, but they used a lot of inspiration from it. And I believe they also used a bunch of inspiration for some other franchise that I forget. It was a classic space TV show. But I like Mass Effect, and I talk about it a little bit because when it comes to the actual spaceships, and when we get to a point where human civilization can interact with other species in the Milky Way galaxy and get along with other species in the Milky Way galaxy, it very realistically represents how it could look. And I'm going to walk you through these games someday, Max, and you're going to see what I mean. But, you know, there's giant space stations, there's giant planets with huge cities on them. Space travel is normalized. I mean, it's just once it gets to a point where we can get that far in the future, I think it's realistic. But I mean, obviously, it's still science fiction today. You know what I mean? So
sure.
If podcasts still exist in the year 2256, we can look back on this episode and take a look. Our AI consciousness can take a look back at this.
Yeah, right. All of you people out there in the year 2057, 56, all of that. Fucking listening to your data crystal iPod fucking whatever. This one's for you.
Yes, your iChip. That's what it's going to be called. iChip. Yep. We're gonna have chips planted into our brain at that point. And if not, we're gonna have eyeglasses that can project holograms. I mean, we're getting there already. We've already seen it happen. Yeah. I mean, hell, Disney does their own holograms right now. Disney World.
True.
Which we could talk about some other time.
Sure.
But anyway. What's your... Just before we end this episode, what is your most... Like, when you think of space travel, what's your most iconic thing that you can think of when it comes to, like, film and TV or video games?
It's straight up Star Trek.
It is Star Trek for you too. Okay.
It has to be Star Trek for anybody out there. Like, sure, Star Wars, Star Trek, Alien, fucking Mass Effect, any of these other franchises out there. And I'm not saying that that's not the thing. Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry wanted to create obviously interesting stories and interesting characters, and from his particular vision, it went in to like it was able to be passed on to new generations of people who were also thinking about space, and then new sciences came out to try and justify all of this stuff. But like cell phones were invented because of Star Trek. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of thing that Star Trek has on pop culture. It influences technology, politics, people. It's
VR headsets were created because of Star
exactly.
Trek too.
I'm
Yeah.
still waiting for holodecks. I want it so
I
bad.
mean, we're getting to a point where holograms are starting to become good enough now that we could eventually see an interactable, touchable hologram at this point. Do
Exactly.
not get any dirty ideas from that, people. I'm talking about screens, and I'm
You
talking
you
about
know who you
I'm
are.
talking about like potentially looking at a Google and searching something on Google that isn't inappropriate and using a hologram of it is my
Yes.
point.
Mature filters are on.
Blur is on. Oh man.
No, but still though, like it's true. We are getting to a point where all of these things are coming to fruition, and a lot of that just started in Star Trek. That's
It's
that's
crazy.
where exactly where like science and culture has been influenced by media to no end. Uh, so it only makes sense that like little tiny science boy or girl out there watches Star Trek, and then they grow up and they say to themselves, "Hey, I want that. That is what I want, and it doesn't exist, so I'm going to build it." And then they do, and it's awesome as fuck.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see like what future generations like the current generation that's growing up right now, what are they going to base their technology off of? Cuz they don't have like a
Right.
Star Trek like we did. I mean, yes, Star Trek Discovery exists, but it's not as influential
It's not
as the
as
other
no.
ones. Yeah, I'm talking about like what particularly is the big space thing right now. Like what's the big
I don't
space
know.
science fiction. Yeah, I mean, I doubt we can talk about three body problem as being the one. Like that's not gonna
Probably
happen.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the VR headset that's all stainless steel. Yeah, that sounds great.
Mhm.
Great idea. Um,
Right.
you have to wonder
Yeah.
what tomorrow's technology will look like because of today's influences. You gotta
Mhm.
wonder. You really
Yeah,
do.
you do have to wonder. It's interesting because like you almost want to go back, and you've seen those have you seen those like 1930s, 1950s old time essentially product commercials about what the future is going to look like?
Hmm.
Uh
It's
they're
very
so
interesting.
fascinating and so interesting. I mean, even Disneyland has Tomorrowland. That was its whole purpose and point. And he even like had the House of Tomorrow, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But
Well, it does. It's been changed now to
has it been
real.
changed?
I mean, well, it's been we saw it when we went to Disney World. I mean, we saw the last exhibit was the House of Tomorrow. It was technically the
Oh,
living
yeah,
room.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
was a living room with the VR headset and the voice activated oven that overcooked
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, that was the Carousel of Progress. That
Yes, I know. I
completely
know.
different
I know.
thing.
I know. Sorry, that was a carousel of progress, my bad. Which but
Very different
that's a
thing.
glimpse into the future though.
It
That was the
was.
year
It was
2078.
exactly. That's the idea that I think can be really interesting is that like we should probably have somebody out there, some media whatever, making a video game or a TV show or a movie that's not this very depressing post-apocalyptic whatever that's going to happen.
Ugh,
And I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but
Fallout.
man, would it be cool if the apocalypse wasn't the thing that was going to happen and we actually survived? What does that technology look like, you know?
Yeah, I think more realistically, I mean, I don't think we're going to have like a wasteland apocalypse on this planet. I don't think
Mhm.
I think we'll eventually get to a point where we are going to have an existential climate crisis to a point where somebody will invent something that will instantly explode in the atmosphere and cool it down. And then the planet just changes dramatically in like a week or two.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. That was actually addressed in extra. It's an Apple TV show. Extrapolations. That's the name of the TV show. Someone invented a gigantic drone network that, at the push of a button at the end of an episode, just went into orbit and exploded this giant cooling system, like this coolant that interacted with the atmosphere and just cooled the entire planet down instantly. It was a very interesting idea. I think that might happen someday. But anyway, I think more realistically, if we see an apocalypse scenario, it'll be in space. I don't think it will be on this planet. I think it'll be in space.
I certainly hope so, for sure. I would much rather the apocalypse happen away and not
I didn't say
here.
away from here. I said in space. That doesn't mean
well,
not in orbit.
Well, shut.
Okay, we gotta end it here.
Okay,
we gotta end it here. But this has been fascinating to talk about. I think the concept of space colonization is realistic. I think that it's doable. But the big thing that we have to deal with are major challenges like fuel, resources, time, money. The fact that space has no oxygen or protection from the sun. I mean,
that's definitely an issue. Definitely a problem.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that, Elon Musk has to solve, because I think he's going to be the one to solve them. I do. Yeah. I really do.
I'm putting my money on Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's at least going to make it popular anyway.
Yeah.
Elon might be the money, Neil's the science.
We'll see, right?
We'll see.
Only time will tell.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been us at the Dialogue Adventure Dome. Whatever the fuck we're calling it.
Oh my god, Maximilian.
Don't know what's going on. It's been us. I'm Max. This is Brendan, and we've been your host here today on the Dialogue Dome. If you're listening to us on any of our podcast sites, thank you so much. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube if you want the visual experience. Or are we doing Spotify visual stuff? Is that a thing?
No,
or is that
we're not. Our podcast publisher doesn't allow for video podcasts. You have to pay for that, which
that makes sense.
I'm good.
I don't know.
I'm good. Let's just go to YouTube.
yeah. Go to YouTube. Check us out. Do the subscription thing. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you later.